I mean, I always look at social media, I'm like, man, I'm the biggest loser ever.
You better learn how to run your numbers.
The race is not with somebody else. The race is with myself.
Like, we're going to crush all of the people trying to do that. Cash is king.
How do you take a wholesale business and optimize it to create cash flow for life? In this episode, we're going to talk to Parker Stiles, and we're going to talk about how do you exactly do that, the exact steps. You're going to absolutely love it. See you during the episode. Hi guys, welcome to Cashflow for Life, and today we have Parker Stiles. So Parker, as we jump into it, how did you get into real estate? What was the start?
The start, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad when I was 13. My dad gave me that book and said, this is something I want you to, discover and learn. And that was kind of my first entrance into real estate at a young age. I had no idea what any of that stuff meant. But that was kind of like my first foot in the door. And he owned and managed rental property that was built by his father back before him. And he would always say, Parker, you got to figure out how to make money in your sleep. That was what he said. I didn't know what that meant. Super young, but he's like, you don't want to work a job. You want to figure out how to make money while you're sleeping, because that's how true wealth is created. So it's a huge blessing for me to be able to have that education at a young age. But it really didn't start clicking until two decades later, when I started getting into more books. I read that same book again, actually. It was really cool to kind of have some flashbacks and remember some prior things, and selling lemonade on the street and all the little entrepreneurial journeys that didn't really click for me as what that was back then. It all kind of started to line up and come a little bit more clear. So I always knew I wanted to be in real estate. I just had no idea in what capacity I wanted to do it in.
So did you make it through college, or were you kind of jumped in feet first right after high school, I guess?
College was really fun, but I think I wasted a lot of time. I'll say that. Okay. But I did graduate.
So did you go get a traditional job at some point?
Yes, I had jobs throughout college. I did my fair share of waiting tables and advanced auto parts and doing all the stuff, and realized that was not what I wanted to do. Really, it was not an education on how to do things. It was more so on what I don't want to spend my life doing, and where I need to be focusing in other areas. But yes, my first quote unquote real job out of college was at a commercial real estate brokerage in the industrial market, working with tenants and landlords for industrial type warehouses. Got it.
So basically, you're working on the commercial side of things, and then you're doing, about 100 wholesales a year, right? That's a lot of volume, and you're doing some kind of interesting things. I know we're going to talk about also some of the changes that are going on with wholesaling in South Carolina, some other places around the country, in fact, later during the show. But how did you exactly come about? Because there's a lot of people that are listening, and you and your wife, I know obviously you guys have a baby. Now what is it, a year and a half old? 2 years?
Yeah. He's 18, 19 months or so.
18, 19 months. Okay.
We got
it. Congratulations.
A girl about to come in like 3 weeks.
Oh, nice.
So
that's awesome, man. It's
getting loud. I'm surprised you don't hear him yelling right now. I'm building an office downstairs because it got way too loud up here real quick.
Yeah. So you run a kind of basically a wholesale operation, right? That's kind of the core of your business, and now obviously you're expanding that. Your dad had a set of properties he was managing in the family business, sort of. So how did you exactly get into wholesales?
I went in backwards, and yes, to go back to your first point, wholesaling is the underlying foundation of my business. It is not why I do what I do, but it is a fundamental piece. And so I initially started as a rehabber. I didn't want to be the wholesaler. I wanted to be the guy buying from the wholesaler. I wanted the before and after pictures. I don't know why, but I wanted to be that guy. So Then I fell backwards into wholesaling. I went to some event. Some guy was talking about virtual wholesaling. And I was like, that sounds cool. Let's do that in addition to what I was doing with my rehabs. Well, that ended up taking a ton more time and focus than what I thought it was going to, and I had to stop rehabbing. I opened up this virtual wholesaling market in South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina, and really just had to turn everything off and put my head down on making that work for the next 18 months or so until I got something going there.
Got it. So you were doing traditional flipping, buying, rehabbing, reselling, and then you're like, oh my God, I can do wholesales and make good money as well. So was there a point where you said, okay, I'm only going to do kind of the choice properties with higher margins as flips, and then rest of it, I'm just going to build a wholesale business? How did you look at that?
You know, it was really, I wanted a business that was going to work without me, and I knew I needed a team in order to do that. And at the time, I thought a virtual wholesaling model was going to force me to build a team because I live in the woods in Georgia. Like I'm 5 hours away from Charleston. I didn't know anybody there. So this would literally, I've been a horrible employee all my life. That was one thing that I learned, is that if it was if it needed to happen, like I wasn't going to do it if somebody was telling me it needed to be done. It was going to be done if I knew that I needed to make it happen. And so I knew that I was unemployable and that I needed to start my own business. And if I threw myself into the situation of you have to go hire people, you have to outsource, you have to manage and train, I knew I would do it. And I did.
Got it. So for those people that may not be familiar with exactly what virtual wholesaling is, right? Can you explain what that is? Because a lot of people may understand wholesaling, you go out, find a some sort of seller that has a need to sell. You go make a deal with them, you get a contract signed, and you're basically flipping the contract. So explain exactly what virtual wholesaling means.
I think virtual wholesaling gets thrown around a lot, that term. But in my opinion, it is wholesaling not in your backyard. I think there are virtual wholesale businesses that go to appointments. They put acquisitions agents in houses, sitting down at the kitchen table. And then there's phone sales companies. We are majority phone sales, but I have some acquisitions agents in Charleston. I have some agents in Charlotte. I have some agents in Columbia. And so they work with each other, and we do push those in-person appointments. We just locked up one last week where there was a scenario by the time that my acquisitions agent walked out the door, the lady was crying on his shoulder and, thanking him for letting her see a future after this house that she couldn't see without him walking her through the steps. That stuff just can't happen over the phone. So we do push in-person too. But virtual mainly just means I'm not there.
You're not there. You're managing a team of people, and it can be in different markets, right?
Yes, there's no office. I think that's the main thing, is there's no office. Everybody's working from home.
Got it. Okay. So let's kind of take a step back, right? Before we get into this piece of it, a lot of times, right, wholesaling is promoted as you don't need money, you don't need credit, you don't need a brain. You just hustle, and you're going to make all this money, right? Yeah. Look at my big check. I just made $30,000. Yeah. So how much of that is real?
For the first couple deals, I think a decent amount of it could be real. I don't think that the amount of people that got into wholesaling, which is why it blew up so crazy. It's why there's so many idiots out there doing it the wrong way, taking advantage of people, and it's why rules are coming down the pipe and bills are getting passed to bring regulation to the space. But a piece of that is true for the first few deals. Now, we're talking about a hobby, not a business. So yes, you can go cold call a list, get lucky. Now let's rewind 3, 4, 5 years ago, back when the hedge funds were scooping stuff up. Now that it was much more likely to go rip a $30,000, $40,000 pop when you had no idea what you were doing. But can you replicate that 3, 4, 10, 15 times a month with no brain, no money, no correct, no, because it requires marketing. It requires people to work the leads, understanding of how to manage people to work the leads, and goes all the way down the line. But yeah, you could do a couple.
So, I know there's a term that's used all the time, and I can't stand the term because it's like an idiot with their head chopped off, and that's hustling, right? And I mean, I really feel hustling is for hookers. Hustling is not for somebody, and we all start there, man. I mean, we all start somewhere, right? I mean, so I'm not trying to put somebody down, but this whole thing about, I hustle all the time. And I'm like, guys, listen, if you're in that phase, you're going to keep hustling in your 30s, 40s, 50s, and you're going to end up dead broke. And you may at some point make a lot of money, but you're not going to have anything to show for it. We should aspire to build a business. It may be a business of acquisition of properties, and then what we do with it, whether we keep it, whether we dispose of it via wholesaling a contract or via doing a flip, that's a different thing. I think that makes a much more logical way to look at a business. Would you agree?
100%. I mean, I think hustling, I think the word has, again, gotten thrown around a little more than it should with all the people out there posting videos and content and everything. I think hustling can be just busting your ass and working hard for, extended hours. And you can be doing that when you are really what you just described is working in the business versus on the business. And you could do both of those things and be hustling. But I think a lot of people, let's take the word hustle out of it. I think a lot of people just get stuck in the business because it starts with fear of outsourcing, fear of letting go of the control of doing it good or doing it yourself. And you may think that you're better than most people at doing it. And that all comes down to just finding the right people. You haven't found that person yet that's better at it than you are. And I can guarantee you those people are out there, and there's plenty of them that are better at the thing than you think you are now.
Makes sense. So let me go back to the first piece of it, right? Which is a big piece. Everybody wants this magic list, right? And every marketer online, oh my God, right? We all want a magic list or this magic way of you can buy PPC leads, or you can, I have this special mail list that only works because we have it and nobody else has it, or this way of advertising or saying this letter, this postcard. So for you, right? What channels of marketing do you guys use?
We are heavy on direct mail. Always have been. It's been a bread and butter for ours. It definitely has not stayed as easy as it used to. It's gotten more expensive. The cost per deal has gone up. The cost per lead has gone up. So you've got to get better at conversion to, still make that pencil. But right now, direct mail, we're heavy on inbound. I've never been heavy on outbound. For those of you that don't know, outbound is mainly texting, cold calling. Think about the sniper approach versus the fishing approach. I like dropping a lot of hooks in the water, direct mail, television, radio, PPL, PPC, referral sources like Home Light, Prime Street. These are the types of leads that, we're bringing in. It's definitely more expensive and tougher for newer businesses to get started with. But back when I was getting started, direct mail was my very first marketing strategy, and it was for years before I bolted on anything else.
Got it. Okay. So when I look at, let's say, direct mail, right? I mean, direct mail is literally as simple as either it can be a postcard, it can be some sort of a letter, it can be a yellow letter. I mean, there's a million of them, right? It can be sending checks in the mail. For you guys, what sort of volume are you guys dropping today?
Today, it's a little bit less than it used to be, a little bit more targeted, less of a blanket approach because of the interest rate environment is the main driver there. 20 to 25,000 pieces a month.
20 to 25,000 a month.
Couple different markets.
And then is this a list you guys are generating in-house? You guys buy a list through somebody, you go through a company? How do you guys do that?
Again, that's changed a lot throughout the years, but right now we are using two different companies that are generating, those AI-based, I call them fancy pants lists.
Sure.
80/20 is one of them, and then we're using REI Complete for for two other markets.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So we use REI Complete for our mailings. So that makes sense. And now, obviously, you talk to REI Complete, you talk to anybody, everybody has their special risks, right? REI Complete, we have this shipwreck list that nobody has, blah, 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 right? I mean, we all know the pitch.
It's all
right?
selling exclusivity.
Exactly, right? But at the end of the day, you're obviously trying to go after either pre-foreclosures, either probates. Those are the basic ones, right? Then you can go people who are absentee landlords. You can go people who have high equity. We know the big lists, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to basically sort a combination thereof. For you, is there a particular type of a property that you try to go after, or say a data set of properties that 800 square feet to 1,300 square feet, X amount of bedrooms, blah, blah, blah? What is that data set for you?
Yeah, so you have your property avatar and you have your seller avatar.
Sure.
Splitting those in half. Our property avatar is your 2 to 4 bedroom house, 1 to 3 baths, no more than 2,500 square feet. Year built ranges from 1950 to 2005, and less than an acre lot size. So for us, and your as is, not as is, but your value, different lists have different ways of having a current market value of the property. And so it's important to ask that list provider, how are you coming up with this number? Is this an AVM from realtor.com? Is this the Zillow's estimate? Is this being pulled from elsewhere? And we're trying to keep that in the average price point home where the largest amount of buyers are buying. That's right. Really, if everything that I just said equates to the most commonly bought house.
So guys, think about this. What Parker just said, he's targeting the sweet spot, right? He's not going for the dumps. He's not going for the white elephants, right? The big houses. I want to buy a 6,000 square foot house, because guess what? Those are the harder to move on the back end to a flipper, to a end buyer. He's in the sweet spot where you have the most amount of transactions that take place in any given market, right? So be it Atlanta, be it Charleston, be it Chicago, those sweet spots are going to be a little bit different, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a certain style of house. You're not trying to go after 4,000 or 5,000 square foot houses, obviously.
Yeah. And I like this little tip for everybody. If you're picking a market, you're trying to find out where you want to go. A lot of times, on the West Coast, you're going to see the higher end homes, the big purchase prices, but you're going to see larger assignment fees, and your volume might go down a little bit. Over on the East Coast, if you're talking more so the Southeast, not the Northeast, or especially the Midwest, you're on the complete other end of the spectrum there. Low $40,000 houses, $60,000 houses, and it may feel like a struggle to rip a 10, 15K assignment fee. You may be in that 5-figure mark, and what I've found is it's around your assignment fee is around 10% of that resale value. Is you plus or minus 3% is kind of where that lies. So you're in that $350,000 price point house, you should be able to be somewhere in that 25 to 35K assignment fee range. $500,000 houses, you're going to be closer to that 50K mark for your assignment fees or your double closes. Now this wholesale only, not talking about a rehab.
Man, I like that. I haven't seen anybody put it that way. I actually like that based on your resale. So if the back end value is 300, you take 10% is what you should go by as a gauge, right? I mean, it's just a guideline. So you talked about a couple of things earlier, and that was the cost per lead and cost per deal, right? Explain that, because a lot of times people may have missed that, which is cost per lead. What do you mean by that? And cost per deal, because those are completely different things.
Definitely. So they're both KPIs, key performance indicators, and there's many of them. But when you're identifying and managing any type of business, it's not just a real estate business. You want to have, you're probably going to have 7 to 15 key performance indicators that you want to be looking at on, say, a flash report on a weekly basis. That's how you're managing the health of that business. And so a cost per lead is a KPI, and that's essentially just how much are we paying as a company for an individual lead. Now for us, that is a cost per net lead. So let's take direct mail, for example. There's gross leads and there's net leads. Gross for us is every single call that comes in. It's the take me off the list. It's the FUs. It's the I need to sell yesterday. It's the I'll look at an offer, but I'm not motivated to sell. So it's everything. Then there's the net leads. And the net is everybody who has a house and they're willing to look at an offer. And so the cost per lead is associated with that net lead. So if we spend $10,000 on mail and we get 100 net leads, 1,000 net leads, and be $100 cost per net.
Sure. Got it.
And ideally, market averages, you'd like to be in that, sub $200 is an incredible cost per net lead. 250 to 350, I'd say now it used to be 250 kind of average. 250 to 350 is now kind of the average. But hey, you're in these markets like the big metropolitans, Atlanta, Charlotte, Dallas. You may be paying $500, $600 for a net lead. Now that translates to the cost per deal. And so the cost per deal is how much it costs you to do one deal. If you did $20,000 in marketing spend and closed 5 deals, then that's a $4,000 cost per deal.
Cost per deal.
Yep.
Makes perfect sense. And a lot of times whenever people are comparing, like they may compare, say, oh my God, mail is expensive. Oh my God, I can do. At the end of the day, if you are in a big market, you may be, if you're buying leads from PPC or you're buying leads from one of the online providers, you may be paying $300-$400. In a market, $500. We've seen that in Chicago, $550 per lead, because these are people that have self-identified themselves. The challenge is, if they're selling that lead to you, how many other people are they selling that same lead to? You have no way of knowing. They're like, oh, no, Andrew, it's exclusive. How do I know? Right? And that becomes a challenge. At least with mail, you know you got the call.
Yeah.
Would that be correct? Right. And 2 or 3 other people may have gotten the call, but I think this is great. So on a mail piece, and obviously it's going to be market dependent, market time dependent, but for every 1,000 pieces that you put out, as far as the response rate on a gross lead level, like you describe your gross versus net, on a gross, what is a good expectation in terms of call volume?
Again, it's going to vary from the state and market that you're in. Okay. But I would say it's going to range from 0.5% in your larger, more competitive metros to 1% to maybe, if you're breaking 1%,
it's awesome, right? That is awesome.
Like,
oh my God, you're killing it.
Pat yourself on the back. Yeah. So
you're killing it.
Budget for, the average would be like 0.7 of 1% is kind of correct.
And we're being realistic, guys. That's why I wanted to have a conversation about this with Parker. But a lot of the KPIs is things he's talking about, obviously, they're not hustling today. They're running a business because when you're doing that much volume of business, you got to be able to have key indicators. Because if one of your numbers is off somewhere, you got to kind of look, oh my God, what the heck is going on in the market, right? It's that having that pulse and the feel of the market becomes so important because things can change, right? So for you said 10% of the back-end values generally. For you guys, is there a number you guys look at that per deal we want to be making 20,000, 25,000, 30,000, or is it market dependent?
Our number for the last 3 years has been 21.5. That's been our average. That wraps in. We have been majority wholesale and some wholetails mixed in there. A wholetail is basically just where we buy it and relist it on the MLS in almost as is condition. But some of those are rolled in there. It's 21.5 really is what it's baked out to over the last probably 250 deals. That is Charleston, Columbia, Atlanta, and Charlotte. So just, just call it the Southeast. That's kind of where we are.
Got it. So let me ask you this. Now you have one kid, now another one on the way. So now it's not just you and your wife having fun, making a good amount of money. I mean, living that life. That's one part of life. Yeah. Now, as a father, now you're like, oh my God, it changes. I'm sure you have, even in your own mind, grown, matured. You're like, now you're living for somebody else, not just for the two of you, right? Has that changed your perspective on how today you look at the business versus, say, 2.5 years back, 3 years back, before you guys, realized you guys were pregnant and that change in things happened? Has both of your perspective changed?
I'll be honest. Yes, but less than I thought it was going to. Okay. Not much. I thought I was kind of actually hoping for this extra crazy rush of motivation. Like, now I've got a little boy, and like it's important for me to show him what hard work is, and what I will have been able to build and create in the lifestyle that it will feed us. But I'm still doing the same stuff. I'm still motivated to get up and get the job done. So it hasn't really, completely shifted. But there are some different angles and reasons that I do certain things.
Got it. So where I was going with the question was that a lot of times I've seen wholesale businesses from the outside, right? A lot of volume. Man, we're doing 200-300 deals. We're doing all this stuff. And I'm like, that's great, right? We have 25 people on payroll, and then we have VAs and you're like, what the hell, man, right? And then nobody talks about net. Everybody talks about gross numbers, right? So and that's a big deal. And you've seen some of those people just great people having to shut down businesses where they have 2-3 million top line gross revenue coming in, and you're taking 150,000 home.
Especially after last year. Last year was an extremely difficult year.
Right. Yeah. So how do you look at your business and say, hey, man, I think I'm running a good, clean business, or I think we're here and I would like to make my business this efficient? What are some benchmarks that you look at?
It's all about the net. Last year, I really, ignited that for me. I've always been focused on what we actually put in our pockets, but I think the real reason, at least for me, why I was more looking at gross than net than maybe I should have, is because up until last year, the net just kind of happened. It just came. The bank accounts were flush. We were throwing money into rental properties and notes and plushing the accounts, and it just kind of worked. Last year was the first year where things just got just wrench after wrench after wrench, just getting thrown in the gears. And so, last year we were one of those companies that did $2 million in gross, and I took home like $350,000. So it's like a 15% net, which we were
all honesty, 40, you were good though. Yeah, but in all honesty, compared to a lot of wholesalers, you're actually being honest with your numbers, and that's actually very good numbers for that operation, right? Maybe people sitting or listening to this at home, you may not realize that's actually a pretty good number. Most people will not. I'm not going to mention who. We both know the person. Actually, I have a ton of respect for this person. Close to 3.5 million in gross, and these guys, both of them, took home about 150 each. Right, 2 guys in that operation, and it's just, and he's like, man, I couldn't do it anymore. Right,
it's
you have 25 people. But unfortunately, for some reason, I don't know if this is your take on it, Parker, but I felt, I came out to some masterminds, and I felt so frustrated because I'm like, listen, man, to make $200,000-$400,000, you don't need 200 volume transaction. You can do a good 20 deals and make a lot of money and keep your life very simple and have some sanity to it. Would you agree with that?
Stay small and keep it all.
I mean, I agree with you 100%, right? Stay small.
We're comparing one end of the spectrum to the other.
Sure.
And so
Sure.
if you are stay small and keep it all, you don't have a team, you're running your own appointments, you're making the offers, you're running comps. And so I think that there's a healthy blend there. I like that. I like that $3 million range with a 35% net. That's the super sweet spot. And that is achievable. But you gotta have good people. And you gotta stay on your marketing, because if last year taught us anything, it's, what was working yesterday may not work tomorrow.
That makes perfect sense. So today, there were a couple things you had mentioned. One was House Light. Another one was Prime Street.
Home Light. Yep.
Home Light. Home Light. So what exactly is that?
Home Light does a lot of radio, television advertisements. They were trying to link people to real estate agents, was their initial business plan. And they're like, let us pick you the perfect custom tailored real estate agent like that exists, for your home sale.
Sure.
And then they were generating all of these leads that didn't work for retail sales. They said, how do we monetize these? Well, let's go find the real estate investors that can buy them and pay us for the leads. But they actually didn't charge for the lead. They just charged a commission on the back end. So 4% of the purchase price, or if it was a commission, 25% of the 25% of the commission amount.
Got it. Okay. And so today, besides mail is your mainstay. What other channels do you guys use?
PPL, we were pretty heavy on need to sell my house fast. I don't think we're going to continue with need to sell. It's just gone downhill, in my opinion. We're doing PPC right now with PPC Force. That is struggling as far as a gross multi. It's good, and then it's not, and it's good. So it's balancing that cash flow war of what's working and what's not, and what needs to build a pipeline, what has a longer cash conversion cycle, meaning how many days on average is it going to take from lead create date to when you get paid. All different marketing strategies have different cash conversion cycles. But yeah, PPC, PPL, direct mail, radio, I've gone pretty deep into over the last 4 years or so, specifically in Charleston. And then we started television ads about a year ago.
How do you like TV, and what markets are you doing TV in?
Just Charleston right now. Okay. May expand that. It is not an incredible return on investment when only looking at the direct ad spend, but it's hard to track. We get people, we've done an increasing, we just closed like about $180,000 in deals that came through our website. And we do ask, but they're like, I think I saw you on the TV, or maybe it was the radio, or I saw you on both. And then I got a letter. And it's just, some of those are hard to really nail down if they don't call from the number on the advertisement, which they don't always do. So we call that halo effect.
Sure.
Where
you're everywhere all the time, and they basically reach out. Got it.
So it's looked at a little bit differently. If I can pay, if I'm spending 70, 80 grand a year on television, and I can make 80 to 100 grand back, if it's paying for itself, I'm probably going to keep a big branding advertisement like that as long as I can manage the float. But it couldn't be my only source, obviously, but it supports the other marketing sources that I have.
Got it. Have you done any of the cold calling, the virtual cold calling from wherever, Turkey, Philippines, whatever, whatever the new country is now this week. Right?
Yeah.
So, because, there's a bunch of them always coming. Have you guys tried that at all?
We have. Mixed results. Okay. It's worked, and then it's not. We're at this very second, we're not doing any cold calling.
Got it. Okay. So, as far as cash flow, the money that obviously you guys make from wholesaling, once that money comes in, in terms of profitability. Obviously, certain amount of it goes lifestyle, living, personal expenses, so on and so forth. How do you think about long-term investments? Are you buying rentals, multis, notes? What is the place you're deploying that capital?
Yeah, I love this question. This is kind of, I said I do wholesaling, but I don't do it for that purpose. I do it as a fundamental foundation to do other things. And so really the reason when I got started of starting a wholesaling business, the reason for it was to create a conveyor belt of off-market deals that came across my desk on a weekly basis. That was the vision that I had. So when those come through, we're looking at them, and my team is now trained to say, all right, well, what could we wholesale this for? What could we wholesale it for? What if we re-abbed it and took it all the way to ARV? Where do we believe that would leave us, backing out all the expenses? Does it fit the margins for or does it fit the returns for our rental portfolio? A creative one is buying properties. We have a private mortgage company where we sell properties on owner financing. So we buy the property cash just for the purpose of reselling it, usually pretty close to as is. They're usually not big renovations. And we're selling it to someone who wants to go put in some sweat equity and put a down payment down. And we're getting anywhere from 18 to 25+% cash on cash returns on our money. And it's a great, talk about passive income. Owning rental property is not passive. You know that for sure. Being the bank is a lot more passive.
Got it. So basically you're deploying that money, because to me, it's like a lot of times most people run on a treadmill, and how hard can I keep running to create income, versus on the side is that how many treadmills do you own that other people run on so they can put money in your pocket, right? Okay. So I guess that brings us to kind of the square one a little bit, which is some of the rule changes in across the country, and they're coming. If they're not in your state, I promise you it's going to come to your state. So it happened in Pennsylvania, I believe. It certainly happened in Illinois, and now South Carolina. You know of any other state?
Not where it has actually passed, but I know that the conversations are happening in North Carolina. The conversations are happening in Georgia. I unfortunately see a waterfall effect type of thing happening. So we'll see, but it's happened in these different states in a different way. South Carolina is the first state that has done it the way that they did it, to not just say, here's some things that you have to do in order to do it. You have to take this course, you have to have this license, you have to pay this fee, versus you can't do it anymore.
Okay. So basically it's you cannot buy a property and even do a hotel deal, right? You can't close on it and just put it right back and resell it, correct?
You can wholesale it, but
you can hotel it.
You just can't market it without owning it. That's really what it boils down to. They said in order to market a property that you don't own, you have to be a real estate agent, right? So they got jurisdiction over you if you're a real estate agent. Then they said, if you're a licensed real estate agent in the state of South Carolina, you can have absolutely nothing to do with wholesaling. And wholesaling is defined as this, and also novations and all of this stuff. So they basically said, hey, in order to do it, you got to be an agent. And if you're an agent, you can't do it.
Then these rules apply.
Yeah. So what you have to do is buy the property. Now there's the installment contract, the installment method. A lot of people are preaching that now as the saving grace to wholesaling in South Carolina. I don't really see that, because imagine I'm going up to the seller and saying, hey, I'll pay you $180,000 cash. I'm going to give it to you in 3 weeks. You're done. You can still stay in the house a week to help move if that makes things more flexible. And then my competition is saying, hey, I'll pay you $180,000, but I'm going to give you $5,000 down, and then I'll give you the rest in 120 days. And I'm going to list it on the MLS and do showings, and then I'll pay. Like, we're going to crush all of the people trying to do that. Cash is king. So I just don't see that being the deal. And even if you do that, that does help for higher purchase price properties, right? $500,000 house, if you can get them to say, hey, I'll bump the purchase price up, it'll make me not have to go borrow so much money, and it'll save me some hard money expense. But even if you do it, you're still the owner. You're still going on title. You're still getting insurance. You're still turning on utilities. You still have to buy a good deal. The reason the wholesaling is so attractive is you can throw shit against the wall to see if it sticks, to try and make money off of a piece of paper where there was no risk for you until you already locked in your back end profit. That's why it got so big. And then you couple it with no money needed, no credit. Why not try it? Then it blew up. A bunch of people did it the wrong way. Regulations coming, and they're saying now you can't do that. And if you can't, you better learn how to run your numbers, because you can't throw shit against the wall anymore to see if it sticks. If you buy a bad deal, you bought a bad deal.
No, but that makes perfect sense. So for you guys, as far as adjusting, right?
Yeah.
What are you guys doing in terms of adjusting your markets?
We reconfigured a lot of deals to make them compliant to close, just to get the stuff that we had already locked in closed. We had to terminate some deals, unfortunately. We're adjusting our marketing to where we're niching down a little bit in South Carolina, where we're getting rid of some zip codes, some stuff where I may have wholesaled in all of these areas, but I'm not buying in this zip code, and I'm not buying in that zip code. So there's some niching down there. And then we're moving to other markets. We're going heavier in North Carolina now. We're repositioning some marketing dollars, because what I love about wholesaling is it plays well with rehabbing. All the masterminds that I've been in over the years, the rehabbers always come in and they say, I've got cash flow problems, and I've got a bunch of stuff, in the works, and it's going to close. I got $1 million in projected whatever, but I got to wait 4 months for it, and I can't keep the lights on. And the answers are always, you need to go wholesale some deals, go get some quick cash, cut some of those profit margins and get some quick money. And then the wholesalers are coming in saying that, my net's not good. I'm spending too much on market. It's especially a problem now with how expensive marketing is getting, and the leads are just getting worse and worse. So, that's a problem. And the answers are, you need to add some exit strategies. You need to go wholesale some deals, go rehab, go add value, go make some bigger profit margins. They just play well together. And so I need that for the way that my business is set up. We've got our break even is 120 grand. I'm losing money if we don't close $120,000 in a month. And I need, we're now in a position where all of these deals, a lot of my flow is coming from South Carolina. So now all of these deals, we've locked in 6 flips last month, a couple rentals, a couple owner finance notes. But what just happened to all of that revenue projection? It just got pushed out 90, 120, 150 days from now. So
Absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense. So is there, whenever you look at your cash flow that comes in every single month, right? Is there a number you look at, man, my goal every single month in terms of cash flow, not earned income, just purely cash flow, that I want to have 30,000 a month, 50,000 a month, 100,000 a month? Is there such a number in your mind that you're like, I'm proud of where I am, or this is what I want to build to by this stage in life?
Yeah, $100,000 a month.
Okay.
We're just constantly focused on bringing cash in actively, and then not letting that sit on the books too long. So we, whether that's buying more rental properties, I'm waiting for interest rates to get a little bit more attractive to help that pencil better, to buy some bigger properties. Normally the ones that are penciling now are the cheaper ones that we're getting in, say, Columbia, South Carolina. We like owner finance notes. For example, one of my flips right now, it's not selling as quickly as we'd like to a retail buyer for where they get a loan from a bank. So I'm going to sell it to them for owner financing at 9.9%, and it's going to be a 21% cash on cash return after all the dust settles. So we'll put that in the private note section. And then the hard money lending is just something that we've really been pushing hard the last 18 months has been where a lot of cash has been going, because it's just such an easy way to quickly deploy it. And average around a 16% return.
Yield curve for the year. So
Correct.
talk me through that with the hard money lending that you guys are doing. Is this something with your own money? Are you raising some of your money and then some raised capital? And then what is the points? What are the terms you're charging?
We're charging 13 and 3. I've got a $999 funding fee. I charge 1 point for a 60-day extension, and
And what is the initial term of the loan?
6 months.
6 months. Okay.
It started with my own cash. Then I started leveraging some banks with some lines and whatnot. Then I started raising some private lenders. So we will arbitrage. We'll raise at 8-9%, and we'll lend that money out at the 13 and 3. I have secured a warehouse line of credit with a bank that we're working on getting some loans out. That's kind of like the terms aren't amazing, but it's a foot in the door loan that could grow very rapidly with continuation of that. And that's basically where I'm paying them 10% and then I'm making the arbitrage. It's really the points though. This is the
Right.
points is really where this game's won. So yeah, I may only be making 13% on the arbitrage per loan, but it's on 6-month money. So I can turn it twice in a year, or if they pay an extension fee, it's another point. And it really stacks on top of each other. So yeah, private money, warehouse
And then-
lines.
Is there,
Cash.
geography-wise, are there certain states that you're willing to underwrite in? And what's the underwriting criteria?
It's really where I'm doing business with my underlying investment business. So North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina. I wanted to stay in areas that I knew to some degree. I also, I'll just have the docs set up for those 3 states, and every state's a little bit different. But why I really like that is it works out for me better financially, maybe not time-wise, if the borrower doesn't do what they say they're going to do. I have the skill set, I have the boots on the ground to be able to take the property back, get it where it needs to be, resell it, hold it as a rental, et cetera. If I was doing this in Washington, there'd be many more question marks, and I'd be much more likely to sell for a loss just to get out of it.
Got it. That makes perfect sense. So at this point, I know you were obviously a part of the Kent's group, the boardroom, and do you still continue to go to different masterminds in terms of growth? What does that look for you?
Yeah, definitely. The boardroom mastermind, I'm still a part of. I've been there for, it's been probably 6 or 7 years. That's been instrumental to where I am today. I wouldn't know a lot of this stuff if it wasn't for not just the meetings, but the people that I've met in those meetings and side conversations and different partnerships and things like that. It's just really great. I'd say the biggest piece is, I live in Watkinsville, Georgia. It's a small town. I mean, it's easy to come back here and just get comfortable. Easy. Like, I'm doing better than all of my friends. Like it's just, you get in that spot. And we're not in the big city. I'm not seeing, Ferraris drive around, and it's just different. So getting out there every 3 months, just kind of, wow, I was thinking small. Wow, I was thinking small. Going back and getting, put back in those shoes. That's what has kept me, growing and wanting more. It's just my wife will tell you, you also have to gauge where the slope gets slippery. Because you don't want to be just always wanting more and never, happy with what with what you have. It's, Ed Milet said it well. I can't remember exactly how he phrased it, but, blissfully dissatisfied, I think is the, term that he said.
No, and I think there's a fine balance between the two, because it's like, how much can you run after, and what is that point where you're like, no, this is where I'm going to stay, and this is, because at the end of the day, at the cost of what, right? Every time you try to grow, it's at the cost of something, right? Your time, your family, so on and so forth. So for anybody listening, like, because we covered kind of a very wide variety of things, according to you, like somebody that is new, somebody that's looking to get started, somebody wants to use wholesaling. I mean, I've always felt rather than wholesaling, it should be looked at off-market deal acquisition. What I do with the deal is what is the highest and best use at that particular time. Maybe the highest and best use is wholesale it. Maybe it's flip it. Maybe it's, do a hotel, or it's to keep it as a rental midterm. I always look at it that way. I don't look at it that I'm in the deal acquisition business. What I do with it is the highest yield at that time, what I need in my life or what I'm trying to do. What would your suggestion be for somebody who's looking at it, oh my God, Parker's doing really well, I want to emulate something like that? Where do they start?
You got it really clear. You got to get really clear on what you want to do. Don't just kind of try and stumble into it. Go talk to people who have what you want and play out your scenario of if you did it the way that they did it. And you'll find a niche, and you don't have to pick the 100% right way for you up front. That will just get you started, and you will learn as you go. I'll say the best advice that I was given when I was just super green, didn't know anything, but just knew I wanted to be successful and knew it had something to do with the real estate, was get clear, have clarity, dream board, all the stuff. I believe in all of that stuff and the impact that it has. But mainly it's learn step A and then do step A. Then go back and learn step B, then go do step B. And not try and learn it all up front. And there's just too many rabbit holes. There's too much to learn. And you just end up thinking yourself out of it.
So clarity of purpose. And as we wrap up, the other thing that what I see is a lot, and obviously social media, doesn't matter how much you try to disconnect from it, it just wraps you. It seems like that everybody out there is killing it. I mean, I always look at social media, I'm like, man, I'm the biggest loser ever. Right? It always takes me so long to grow. I mean, I always, and then I have to remind myself, man, I'm blessed where I am in my life at this point, right? And this is my hike. Maybe somebody started a little bit before, maybe somebody started a little bit later. The race is not with somebody else. The race is with myself. I have the hardest time because I think a lot of times I feel very insecure, even today, right? I'm nothing to be insecure about, but I do. Do you ever suffer with that symptom?
Oh, for sure. All the time. Yeah. I mean, it's social media it has its pros, but God, it just seems like it's always a trick. I mean, when you read between the lines and you look under the covers, it's just not what it looks like on social. Everybody said it's the highlight reel of everyone's story. I hate posting on social media. I really do. I'd love to just delete all the channels, but it's great for business. It brings me leads. It brings me private money lenders that you don't want to invest in the skill sets that I've built over the last decade, but they have money they want to put to work. So it does have its benefits, but you really have to be careful with it when it comes to comparing yourself to others and the success of others and how fast it looks like they may have gotten there, because it all looks so real and true when you're scrolling, and it's just usually not.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's because a lot of times nowadays, especially as we do mastery and all that, Andrew, this person's doing X, Y, Z, right? I'm like, hey man, listen, you don't go to the airport and say, well, the other person is getting on that plane, it's going to France. You want to go to Italy. So, and it's just different destination. There's nothing right, wrong with it. It's everybody's own thing, but you got to pick a way, believe in it, do it for long periods of time. And it's repetitious boredom. Success is repetitious boredom.
Yeah.
Right? So, man, this has been absolutely awesome.
Yes.
I was looking forward to having this conversation. It's been really, really fun. And I think a lot of things you talked about, a lot of things you shared, the audience will get a ton out of it. Guys, you're listening to Andrew Holmes at Cashflow For Life, and we've been with Parker Stiles. And if you're looking for a loan in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and you want a great qualified lender, this is the guy. Look him up, and he would love to work with you. All right, buddy. Thanks. Talk to you soon.
Andrew. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.